something unseen is happening worldwide. There is just something about an unsolved mystery, isn't there? Sure, it's great when you eventually find out why something happened the way it did, but man, the idea of an event taking place without an immediate plausible explanation just sends those debating skills into overdrive and makes the conspiracy theories pile up. Below are just some examples of mysteries that will probably be debated for a long time to come. Number 10. A mummy. Back in 2000, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan battled for ownership of what they believed to be the mummified remains of a 2,600-year-old Persian princess. The mummy was found by police during a raid of a Baluchistan chieftain home in Kharan, Pakistan, and was to be sold on the black market for millions. When she was discovered, the mummy's head was adorned with a golden crown, and there were gold ornaments in her coffin, which truly made it seem that an archaeological wonder had been found. However, not everyone was convinced that the mummy was the real deal. Professor Ahmad Dani, director of the Institute of Asian Civilizations in Islamabad, claimed to have known from the beginning that the mummy was not all it was cracked up to be. Well, he wasn't wrong. It was soon discovered after a detailed study of the remains that the body was not 2,600 years old and not a Persian princess. It was revealed that the coffin she rested in was not as old as her remains were believed to be, and that the mat she was laid on was possibly a mere 5 years old. The Persian mummy was now believed to be the body of a 21-year-old female victim, her neck, jaw, and back broken. Finally, it was confirmed, with the help of radiocarbon testing, that the victim had passed on in 1996. The mummy was buried in 2005 without the victim ever being identified. Number 9. Dutch students disappear. On the 1st of April 2014, Dutch students Lisanne Froon and Chris Kramers waved goodbye to the family hosting them during their long-planned trip to Panama and walked off with the family dog for a hike along the Baru volcano. They posted on Facebook that they were going to walk around Bouquet before tackling the hiking trail. That evening, the host family noticed the dog traipsing back into the house, but there was no sign of the two young women. Assuming they may have decided to overnight it on the trail, the family waited until morning. However, when they discovered that Chris and Lisanne never showed up for their private walking tour of Bouquet, the family immediately contacted the police. Chris and Lisanne's parents arrived in Panama 5 days later and waited anxiously for news of their children as police and detectives scoured the forest for 10 days. It took 10 weeks for a break in the case. A local woman turned up at the police station with a blue backpack she had found on a riverbank in the Boca del Toros region. Inside the backpack were Lisanne's passport, sunglasses, 2 pairs of bras, a water bottle, and some cash. Police also found a camera and both girls' cell phones in the backpack. When they scrolled through the phones, they found that there had been 77 attempts to call the police and emergency services in both Panama as well as the Netherlands. Due to lack of signal in the area, these calls did not go through. On one of the phones, they found several photos of the trail and surrounding forest. There were also photos taken on the 8th of April of the girls' belongings scattered over some rocks and a disturbing photo of the back of Chris's head showing blood streaming from her temple. 2 months later, bones were found in the forest. DNA tests confirmed that the bones belonged to the 2 missing girls. Later in 2014, they were publicly declared deceased of a hiking accident. Police never found out how they passed on or if someone was responsible for it. Number 8. Leatherman. Historian Dan DeLuca spent most of his life researching a deceased homeless man's life. Ever since he stumbled upon his grave in the Sparta Cemetery in Ossining, New York, DeLuca had been fascinated with the man known as Leatherman. He learned that the inscription on Leatherman's gravestone incorrectly referred to the deceased as Jules Bourglet of Lyons, France. He also knew that Leatherman had been a source of mystery for people in Westchester County and Western Connecticut since the 1850s. Leatherman was said to have a strange ritual which contributed to much of the speculation surrounding him. Once a month, he would walk 360 miles between the Hudson and Connecticut rivers. Being homeless, he was dressed very modestly in patchwork garments and wooden shoes, and very rarely spoke to anyone. He slept in the forest and sometimes in caves, but he would never stay inside a building for more than a couple of minutes. He often asked for food as he passed by a farmhouse, and the occupants were amazed at his appetite. He could eat a staggering amount while remaining standing at the front door. The press began following Leatherman's movements and chronicled his travels for over 30 years. In modern times, the research into this mysterious man continues. Pearl Jam got caught up in the mystery and wrote a song about him. Leatherman's real name and age at that time remains unknown, as does the place of his birth and where he grew up. Number 7. Bloodstained Nina Craig Miles' crypt. Nina Craig Miles was born to Myra Adelia Thompson Craig Miles and John Henderson Craig Miles on August 5, 1864. As she grew, Nina learned to love riding on a horse-drawn buggy. During one such outing with her grandfather on St. Luke's Day in 1871, the buggy they were riding on was hit full-on by an oncoming train as they were crossing the railroad tracks. 7-year-old Nina's life ended right there. While her family grieved, Nina's father changed his will to include a clause that stated he wished to be buried inside the mausoleum where Nina's ashes rested. John Craig Mels also ensured that an Episcopal church was built in Nina's memory, which included the marble mausoleum in the churchyard to keep Nina's ashes in. The church was named St. Luke's Memorial Episcopal Church and was consecrated in 1872. John passed on in 1899 and was buried as requested inside Nina's mausoleum. Sometime later, red stains started appearing on the outside of the mausoleum. Efforts to clean the stains failed, and when the marble blocks were replaced, the stains simply reappeared. In modern times, sightings have been reported of a little ghost girl in 1800s clothing playing outside the mausoleum. The red stains are still visible on the Craig Miles Mausoleum in Cleveland, and tourists love relating the story. However, the cause of the stains remains a mystery. Number 6. Mel's Bottomless Hole. On February 21, 1997, a listener appeared as a guest on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. The man called himself Mel Waters and related a story reminiscent of the Pet Cemetery plot. Waters claimed that a mysterious hole had appeared on his property in a rural area 9 miles west of Ellensburg in Kittitas County, Washington. He went on to say that the hole was more than 80,000 feet deep and could resurrect dead animals. Waters furthermore claimed that the government officials seized his land, took ownership of the hole, and paid him to relocate to Australia. Waters appeared on the show again in 2000 and 2002, soon after which it was reported by a local newspaper that no one named Mel Waters ever lived on the Manitash River near Ellensburg. Most people wrote the story off as ramblings by an unstable man and didn't give the mystical hole another thought. Then, in 2008, a medicine man named Red Elk claimed that he knew the mysterious hole well and that it could set ice on fire. He also made the bizarre claim that the hole cooked a sheep while it was still alive and then made a seal appear inside the cooked sheep. To this day, no one knows the real identity of Mel Waters and why he appeared on radio 3 times to relay a story that was only ever corroborated by one other person. Even so, some diehard believers still find time in their schedule to wander around the Manitash area in the hopes of finding this mysterious hole in the ground. Number 5. Vatican disappearance. When 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi finished her second year of high school in Rome in 1983, she chose to continue with flute lessons at the Tommaso Ludovico da Vittoria School. On the 22nd of June 1983, Emanuela asked her brother Pietro to accompany her on the bus to the music school, but he had prior commitments. She arrived late to class that day and later telephoned her sister to inform her that she had been given a job opportunity to become a representative of Avon Cosmetics. The rep who had presented her with the opportunity spoke to her before her music lesson, causing Emanuela to run late. Later that day, Emanuela told a friend of hers about the job before getting into a BMW and riding off. Emanuela Orlandi was never seen again. Many false leads materialized over the years, as did an abundance of theories on what may have happened to the young girl. Some believe that she was abducted by a Bulgarian neo-fascist youth group. Others claim that she's living in a Muslim community in Paris. Even more outrageous, theories include that her kidnapping was part of a plot to end the life of St. John Paul II, or could even be linked to the seedy underbelly of Rome. In 2017, an Italian journalist claimed to have stolen a document from the Vatican, which suggested Emanuela's disappearance was planned. The Vatican immediately claimed fake news. In July 2019, the Vatican excavated the tombs of 2 19th century German princesses in the Pontifical Teutonic College Cemetery after an anonymous tip was received that Emanuela's remains were buried inside them. Instead, they found completely empty tombs, meaning the remains of the princesses are in question as well. During these excavations, 2 sets of bones were found under a stone slab, which are in the process of being inspected. Hopefully, the mystery of what happened to Emanuela Orlandi will finally be solved in 2020. Number 4. Kathy Hobbs' premonition. When Catherine Marie Hobbs was 8 years old, her parents divorced. As if this wasn't bad enough for the young girl, her best friend passed on while they were both in middle school. Soon after, Catherine, or Kathy as her family called her, started having disturbing premonitions that she would not live past 16 years of age. Kathy and her sister Teresa moved to a Las Vegas suburb with their mother, where Kathy made new friends and eventually woke up on her 16th birthday on the 20th of April, 1987. Feeling greatly relieved that nothing terrible had happened to her. As the days passed after her birthday, Kathy grew confident that her premonitions were nothing more than a figment of her imagination. On July 23, 1987, Kathy left her house to buy a novel at the local supermarket a block and a half away. Her mom kissed her goodbye in case she fell asleep before Kathy returned. The next morning, Kathy's mom knocked on her bedroom door only to discover it was empty. Kathy never made it back home. Her mother filed a missing persons report immediately. 9 days later, a hiker found Kathy's body near Lake Mead. When police were called, they discovered rocks at the scene with Kathy's blood on it, indicating that the teenager had been hit on the head repeatedly. The news devastated Kathy's mother and sister. Later, while cleaning out her bedroom, they found letters written by Kathy to each family member. The letters were dated a month before Kathy's 16th birthday. In them, she wrote that she loved them dearly and that they shouldn't be upset or dwell over her fate. Kathy Hobbs' case remains unsolved, even though a man by the name of Michael Lee Lockhart was a prime suspect and eventually executed for another case. Number 3. Titanic poisoning. On the last day of filming the movie Titanic in Nova Scotia, James Cameron suddenly felt inexplicably ill and disoriented. When he started vomiting, he realized something was very wrong. Once he got back to the set, he found he wasn't the only one feeling strange, as some of the cast and crew were vomiting or crying, and even some laughing. At Dartmouth General Hospital, things took an even weirder turn when a crew member stabbed Cameron in the face with a pen, while others started stealing unoccupied wheelchairs and wheeling themselves up and down the hospital corridors. Cameron, who was bleeding from the pen stab wound, couldn't stop laughing. Once the hospital staff ruled out food poisoning, they realized that chowder consumed by more than 60 people on set had been laced with PCP. Theories abounded, one of which had it that a dismissed crew member tried to take revenge by poisoning the food. Officially, the mystery remains long after the case was closed in 1999 due to a lack of suspects. And with that, it's now time for today's best pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. Mysterious figure on the clouds. It's not every day that you look out a window and see a bunch of people chilling by the clouds. But this is exactly what Jake Nickinson saw on his flight to Atlanta on a fine Sunday evening. It is believed that these unknown figures could possibly be aliens or other supernatural beings. What do you think they are? Some people argue that the picture was created on Photoshop, but if you look closely, it's too perfect to have been. This mystery is still unsolved and no one knows what happened. But Jake sure won't be flying anytime soon, after he vowed never to in an interview. Number 1. Mini coffins. In 1836, a group of boys set off for Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, Scotland to hunt rabbits. Intrigued by a concealed cave, the boys decided to peek inside. After pulling away the stones covering the entrance, they stumbled upon 17 miniature coffins, each with a wooden doll inside. The dolls had big eyes and were dressed in cotton clothing. When the discovery was reported in the Scotsman newspaper, the article mentioned that the coffins were decorated with funeral trappings, and it seemed they had been placed inside the cave recently. As is always the case with unexplained discoveries, multiple theories were presented to try and explain the coffins. Some people thought it might be children playing a trick, while others mused that witches might have used the coffin for rituals. Yet another theory said that the coffins may have been part of an ancient custom to give sailors who passed on at sea a Christian burial. A dark theory suggested that the coffins may have been set up in tribute of William Burke and William Hare, who took the lives of 17 people. The true purpose of the coffins, and who had placed them in the cave, remains a mystery.